I am a 29-year-old mechanic from Pennsylvania, and the pride of my life was my restored 1967 Ford Mustang. That car represented 3 years of overtime shifts and countless weekends hunched over its engine. Every dollar I earned went into bringing that beauty back to life. She was more than transportation. She was proof I could build something lasting with my own hands. Then one day, I returned from a work trip to find my garage empty. My parents had taken what mattered most to me. Before I tell you how my own parents betrayed me and what justice finally looked like, let me know where you are watching from. And hit that like and subscribe button if family betrayal stories make your blood boil. Growing up in Millbrook, Pennsylvania was simple enough. My middle-class family lived in a modest 3-bedroom house on Maple Street. My father worked as an accountant while my mother taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. From the outside, we probably looked like any normal American family, but inside those walls was a different story. I found my passion early. Cars fascinated me since I was old enough to recognize them. My grandfather fueled this interest, spending hours teaching me about engines and restoration. He owned a 1955 Chevy that he maintained meticulously, and those Saturday afternoons in his garage became my sanctuary. When he passed away when I was 16, I promised myself I would honor his memory by following my passion. My relationship with my parents was complicated. They never understood my interest in automobiles and made it clear they thought it was just a phase. Their attention always centered on my younger brother, Alan. 6 years my junior Alan could do no wrong in their eyes. When he wanted guitar lessons, they found the money. When he wanted a gaming computer, it appeared under the Christmas tree. Meanwhile, I worked summers at Jiffy Lube just to afford basic tools. The college fund disparity hit particularly hard. My parents had supposedly saved for both our educations, but when Alan got accepted to a private university, they emptied the accounts to cover his tuition. When I asked about my portion, they simply said I should apply for scholarships or consider community college since I was just going to work with cars anyway. Despite this treatment, I tried to maintain peace. I moved out at 18, found a job at Peterson Auto Shop, and started saving every penny. My boss Frank took me under his wing, teaching me advanced restoration techniques. I lived in a small studio apartment, ate ramen more often than not, and put almost 80% of my paycheck into my savings account. Then, 3 years ago, I found her. A beaten 1967 Mustang Fastback sitting in an elderly widow's yard with a faded for sale sign. Mrs. Winters explained her husband had planned to restore it, but passed before he could start. The car was in rough shape with rust claiming portions of the body, an interior that smelled of mildew, and an engine that refused to turn over. But I saw potential. The frame was solid, the vehicle identification number matched the paperwork, and somehow the classic lines remained elegant despite years of neglect. I paid $7,000, nearly everything I had saved, and towed my treasure home. The restoration became my obsession. I replaced the entire electrical system, rebuilt the V8 engine piece by piece, and learned bodywork to fix the rusted panels. Frank let me use the shop after hours, and I spent almost every weekend covered in grease and metal shavings. I documented everything, keeping meticulous records of parts and labor. After 18 months of work, she was transformed. The glossy Highland green paint gleamed under sunlight. The rebuilt engine purred with a deep rumble that vibrated through the steering wheel. The black leather interior was perfect down to the last stitch. I named her Eleanor, after the Mustang from Gone in 60 Seconds. Eleanor represented everything my family doubted about me. Every time they suggested I needed a real career or belittled my choices, I thought about how they would react when they saw the finished project. Foolishly, I believed success would finally earn their respect. Alan, now 23, never worked a day in his life. After graduating with a business degree, he spent 6 months traveling through Europe on our parents' dime. Upon returning, he landed a corporate job through our father's connections. My parents never stopped reminding me how successful he was, while subtly suggesting I had wasted my potential. I maintained minimal contact, visiting on holidays and occasional Sunday dinners. During these visits, Alan would complain about taking the bus to work or hint about needing a car. I noticed my mother's pointed looks, but ignored them. Eleanor was mine, the one thing I had that was truly earned through my own sweat and determination. Last month, I received an exciting opportunity. A wealthy client in San Francisco wanted custom work on his classic car collection. The 2-week assignment would pay enough to cover 3 months of expenses. I accepted, immediately making arrangements with my roommate Jackson to keep an eye on our apartment and my precious Mustang secured in our rented garage. I checked in regularly during my trip. Jackson assured me everything was fine. The client was so impressed with my work that I finished the job 3 days early and caught an earlier flight home, eager to take Eleanor for a long drive on the winding mountain roads outside town. The moment I walked into that empty garage still haunts me. The overhead light illuminated the vacant space where Eleanor should have been. My toolbox remained untouched in the corner, but the space where my Mustang always sat was painfully bare. The concrete still showed faint oil stains in the shape of her tires, like a crime scene outline of a missing person. My heart pounded against my ribs as I fumbled for my phone and called Jackson. He answered on the second ring, confusion clear in his voice when I demanded to know where my car was. "Your parents picked it up 3 days ago," he explained, bewilderment evident in his tone. "They had your spare key and said you had given them permission to take it while you were gone. Your dad even showed me a text from your number." I had no reason to doubt them, Eddie. The blood drained from my face. I had never given them permission. I had never given them a key. The spare was hidden in my apartment for emergencies. They must have found it during their last visit when they insisted on bringing dinner over, probably searched my place while I was in the bathroom. I borrowed Jackson's Honda and drove straight to my parents' house, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. The familiar 20-minute drive stretched into an eternity, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe there was some emergency. Maybe they needed to move the car for some legitimate reason. Deep down, I knew better. As I turned onto their street, the setting sun glinted off Highland green metal in their driveway. Eleanor sat there like she belonged to them, water droplets still clinging to her surface from a recent wash. And there was Alan, carefully drying the hood with a microfiber towel. I slammed the Honda to a stop and was out the door before the engine fully quieted. Alan looked up, surprise flickering across his face before being replaced by a smug smile. "Hey bro, check out my new ride," he called, patting the fender like he had any right to touch her. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice dangerously low as my parents emerged from the front door. My mother crossed her arms over her chest. "Eddie, watch your language. The neighbors will hear you." "I do not care about the neighbors. I care about why my car is in your driveway, with Alan acting like he owns it." My father stepped forward, his accountant voice in full effect. "Son, we need to talk about your priorities. You are nearly 30 years old and all you care about is this car. Alan needed reliable transportation for his promotion, and we decided it was time you shared something with your brother." "Shared?" I sputtered, incredulous. "That car is legally mine. I bought it. I restored it. You have no right." The words my mother spoke next froze my blood. "Your brother legally owns it now. We transferred the title." "That is impossible," I said, but the certainty in their expressions made my stomach drop. "You cannot transfer a title without my signature." My father looked uncomfortable for just a second before his expression hardened. "We handled the paperwork. It is all legitimate now." The realization hit me like a physical blow. The spare key, the mysterious text Jackson mentioned, and now the title transfer. They had systematically stolen my car through fraud and forgery. "You forged my signature," I stated flatly, watching their reactions. Neither denied it. Alan stepped forward, twirling the key ring around his finger. "Look, Eddie, I know you put a lot of work into this old thing, but I actually need it for my career. You just fix cars for a living. You can always build another one." "Old thing," I repeated, my voice barely audible. "I poured $30,000 and 18 months of my life into that restoration, and it looks great," Alan grinned. "Though I am thinking of changing the color. Green is not really my style. Maybe a bright red with racing stripes. And those old seats are pretty uncomfortable. My buddy knows a guy who can install heated leather seats from a new BMW. My vision actually blurred at the thought of him destroying everything I had built. I took a step toward him, not entirely sure what I planned to do when my mother intervened. "This is exactly why we did this, Eddie. Your attachment to this car is unhealthy. You are too old for these toys. It is time to grow up and focus on building a real future like your brother." I stared at them, these people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and saw only strangers. The lifetime of favoritism, the countless small betrayals, and now this ultimate theft crashed over me like a wave. This wasn't just about a car. It was about them never believing I was worth the same consideration as Alan. "You stole from me," I said quietly. "Your own son." "Do not be so dramatic," my father dismissed. "We are family. Everything stays in the family." I backed away, afraid of what I might say or do if I stayed another minute. Jackson was waiting in his car, watching the confrontation with wide eyes. I climbed in silently and asked him to drive. "What happened?" he asked as we pulled away. "They stole my car and gave it to Alan. They actually forged my signature on the title transfer." Jackson whistled low. "That is straight up illegal, man." "I know." Back at our apartment, I paced the floor until dawn. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Alan describing his plans for my car. New rims, a different engine, a spoiler. Each message was a fresh knife in my heart. By morning, my grief had crystallized into resolve. Family or not, this was theft. This was forgery. This was wrong. Jackson sat across from me at our small kitchen table, pushing a mug of coffee my way. "You need to call the cops, Eddie. I will back you up about them taking the car without permission." I stared into the black coffee, seeing Eleanor's glossy paint reflected in its surface. "They are my parents, Jackson. Parents who committed multiple felonies against you," he countered. "Would you let anyone else get away with this?" He was right. The final text from Alan sealed it. A photo of Eleanor with the caption, "Thinking of removing that old engine and going electric. Environmental upgrade." The engine I had rebuilt with my own hands. The engine that carried my grandfather's lessons and my own growth as a mechanic. Some lines cannot be uncrossed. This was mine. The next morning, I called my friend Thomas, who had recently passed the bar exam. Over breakfast at a local diner, I laid out the entire situation, showing him my original purchase paperwork, restoration receipts, and the threatening texts from Alan about changing the car. Thomas listened intently, occasionally making notes. When I finished, he looked up with serious eyes. "Eddie, this is cut and dry. Vehicle theft, forgery, fraud. Multiple felonies. The family connection does not change the legal facts. You have more than enough evidence to file charges." "What is the process?" I asked, my resolve strengthening. "First step is filing a police report. I will go with you. Then we will need to provide all your documentation proving ownership and the work you put into the vehicle. The police will investigate the forged documents, which should be fairly straightforward to prove fraudulent." 2 hours later, we sat in the Millbrook police station across from Officer Bryant, a middle-aged cop with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. He took my statement, methodically examining my documentation with careful attention. "You have the original bill of sale, all work receipts and insurance in your name," he noted. "This is pretty clear ownership. We will open an investigation immediately." "They are my parents," I admitted, still feeling the weight of that reality. Officer Bryant nodded solemnly. "Unfortunately, family disputes over property are more common than you might think. The law does not make exceptions for blood relations when it comes to theft and forgery." The investigation moved quickly. By that afternoon, 2 officers were dispatched to my parents' house with questions about the Mustang. I was not present, but Jackson's cousin worked as a dispatcher and filled us in on what happened. Apparently, my parents were stunned when officers appeared at their door. They initially tried to dismiss the situation as a family matter, but when the officers mentioned potential forgery charges, their demeanor changed dramatically. My mother burst into tears while my father demanded to speak to his attorney. Alan predictably panicked. According to the report, he immediately tried to claim there had been a misunderstanding and offered to return the car. The officers informed him the vehicle was now evidence in an active investigation and could not be moved. The forensic examination of the title transfer revealed exactly what I suspected. The signature was a poor imitation of my handwriting, likely copied from old birthday cards or other documents they had kept. The DMV employee who had processed the transfer was also interviewed, revealing my father had claimed to be handling the paperwork for his son, who was out of town presenting a forged authorization letter, along with the forged title, transfer. As news of the investigation spread through our small town, the pressure began mounting. Extended family members called incessantly. My Aunt Susan supported my decision, revealing that my father had borrowed money from my grandfather years ago and never repaid it. My cousin Mark, however, berated me for bringing legal action against family, calling me selfish and vindictive. Anonymous messages appeared on my phone and social media. Family traitor. How could you do this to your own parents, money-grubbing snitch? I changed my number and locked down my accounts. Work became my sanctuary. Frank heard about the situation and offered nothing but support. You built that car from nothing, kid. Nobody has the right to take it from you, blood or not. The weeks leading up to the court date were some of the most difficult of my life. I struggled to sleep, replaying every memory of favoritism and dismissal from my childhood. Had there been signs this level of betrayal was possible, could I have prevented it somehow? Thomas helped prepare me for court, coaching me on how to present my testimony calmly and clearly. Stick to the facts. No emotional outbursts. Let the evidence speak for itself. The morning of the hearing arrived with a physical weight pressing on my chest. I dressed in my only suit purchased years ago for a friend's wedding. Thomas met me at my apartment, his professional demeanor providing an anchor in the storm. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with polished wooden benches and the subtle scent of lemon polish. My parents and Alan sat on the opposite side, all three dressed impeccably. My mother avoided my gaze while my father stared stonily ahead. Alan looked pale and fidgety. Just before proceedings began, my father approached Thomas, suggesting we speak privately. In a small conference room, he offered a settlement. We will return the car and cover any damages Alan may have caused, he proposed stiffly. In exchange, you drop all charges. This does not need to destroy our family. I looked at the man who had raised me, searching for any sign of genuine remorse. All I saw was fear of consequences. Did you consider that forging my signature and stealing my car might destroy our family? I asked quietly. Did you think about me at all? His silence was answer enough. Back in the courtroom, the judge reviewed the evidence methodically. The original purchase documents, the hundreds of time-stamped photos documenting my restoration work, the insurance policy in my name, the forensic report confirming the forged signature, the witness statement from Jackson about how my parents had taken the car. When the judge announced her ruling, her voice was firm and unambiguous. The Mustang was legally mine and must be returned immediately. Furthermore, she found sufficient evidence to proceed with criminal charges for forgery and fraud. The family relationship between parties does not negate the seriousness of these offenses, she stated. Title fraud undermines the very system of property ownership our society depends upon. As we left the courtroom, I caught a glimpse of my mother's tear-stained face and Alan's angry scowl. My father looked suddenly older, the consequences of his actions finally sinking in. Eleanor was returned to me that afternoon. The damage was immediately apparent. Alan had already begun his modifications, replacing the carefully sourced vintage radio with a garish modern unit that did not fit properly. The original floor mats were gone, replaced with rubber ones bearing a sports team logo. The glove compartment contained fast food wrappers, and the distinct smell of cigarettes permeated the interior I had so carefully restored. Yet as I slid behind the wheel, feeling the familiar contours of the steering wheel against my palms, I knew I had made the right choice. Some things are worth fighting for, even against your own blood. The legal aftermath unfolded over the next several months. My parents ultimately accepted a plea deal to avoid jail time, receiving probation and an order to pay restitution for the damages to the car. Alan faced no charges but was required to complete community service hours for his role in using property he knew was stolen. The hardest decision came next. After extensive reflection and several sessions with a therapist, I began seeking to process the betrayal I made, the painful choice to cut contact with my immediate family. I sent a brief, direct email explaining that trust once broken at this level could not be repaired and requested they not attempt to contact me. Some called this decision harsh. Perhaps it was. But after 29 years of being treated as less worthy than my brother, the theft of something I had poured my heart and soul into was the final line they had crossed. The physical restoration of Eleanor became therapeutic. Each cigarette burn I repaired, each fast food stain I removed, became symbolic of reclaiming not just my car but my sense of self-worth. I removed all traces of Alan's hasty modifications, carefully sourcing original parts to return her to her authentic state. During this process, I discovered an unexpected community. The local classic car club reached out after hearing my story through Frank. These strangers welcomed me and Eleanor to their Sunday gatherings, offering genuine appreciation for the craftsmanship I had poured into the restoration. Among them, I found people who valued what I valued, who understood the dedication required to bring history back to life. My circle of support grew in other unexpected ways. Jackson stood firmly by me throughout the ordeal. Co-workers at the shop defended me against town gossip. Thomas refused to charge me for his legal assistance, saying the case had given him valuable experience. Most surprisingly, my grandfather's old friend Robert contacted me after hearing about the case. Over coffee in his garage, surrounded by vintage car parts, he shared stories about my grandfather I had never heard. He always said you had the touch, Robert told me, examining Eleanor with appreciative eyes. He would have been proud of not just this restoration, but that you stood your ground. George never believed in letting people walk all over you, even family. Those words meant more than any court victory. When distant relatives or mutual acquaintances tried to pressure me into reconciliation, I maintained firm boundaries. I am open to hearing a genuine apology someday, I would say. But I will never again allow myself to be disrespected or taken advantage of by anyone, family included. 6 months after the court case, I entered Eleanor in the Millbrook Classic Car Show. As I polished her chrome bumpers in the early morning sunlight, a sense of peace settled over me. The car that had caused such division now represented my newfound strength and self-respect. Eleanor won second place in her category. The blue ribbon looked perfect, hanging from her rearview mirror. More meaningful than the award were the connections I made with other enthusiasts who commissioned small restoration jobs from me. This led to a small side business I now run on weekends, helping others bring their classic treasures back to life. The extra income allowed me to upgrade my tools and even put a down payment on a small house with a proper garage. Last week, I took Eleanor for a drive. Along the coastal highway, windows down, an engine rumbling contentedly. The open road ahead represented possibilities I never would have discovered had I remained tethered to toxic family dynamics. The truth I learned through this painful journey is that family should be defined by respect and love, not merely by blood. The people who truly care about you celebrate your passions rather than belittling them. They respect your boundaries instead of violating them. They support your growth instead of attempting to diminish it. Sometimes the most difficult battles we face are against the people who should love us most. Standing up for yourself against family can feel like betrayal, but I have come to understand that the real betrayal lies in allowing others to trample your dignity and self-worth, regardless of their relation to you. Today, I am stronger, more confident, and surrounded by people who value me for who I am. Eleanor continues to be my pride and joy, but she is no longer the only source of my identity. She is simply a beautiful reminder that I am capable of creating something, lasting something, worthy of protection and respect. Have you ever had to stand up to family who crossed serious boundaries? Share your experience in the comments below. Sometimes, knowing others have walked similar paths can help those still finding their courage. If this story of holding firm for your self-respect resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And if you know someone struggling with toxic family dynamics, Share this video as a reminder that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most necessary growth. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that you deserve respect regardless of who is trying to take it from you.